For some time I found myself having to carry out tasks in Vegas Pro which were repetitive and time-consuming. I had known about the ability for Vegas Pro to act autonomously using scripting, but learning how to write scripts seemed too daunting. I finally plucked up courage and started on simple scripts with the help from Edward of jetdv.com, the Vegas Pro scripting guru. This gave me a great deal of satisfaction, and I eventually progressed to writing a custom extension containing a few tools that I found very useful. I called this extension Pandora. In this tutorial, I describe the available tools and how to use them. I'll also explain how to install the extension. There'll be a link in the description so you can download and install it. After downloading, the extension, called Pandora V01.dll, should be moved to this directory. Then launch Vegas Pro, select View, then Extensions, and select Pandora. The Pandora interface should then appear with the other tabbed windows. If it appears in an undocked window, it can be docked with the other tabbed windows using the normal docking method. Once installed, the extension will remain tabbed unless you change the window layout. It will also appear the next time you launch Vegas Pro. I'll now describe each of the tools. This is the tool that started me on the scripting journey. Over many years of using Vegas Pro, I found myself having to repeatedly drag the ends of events to create fades. It became tedious making sure that the fade length was exactly what I wanted. This tool eliminates that tedium. There are two options. The first option allows specified fade lengths to be applied to selected events on the timeline. A numeric input allows the fades to be applied to either end of the event, or to both ends. There are also a number of radio buttons that can be used to quickly select from a range of fade lengths. Once the fade lengths have been specified, they can be applied to selected events by clicking the green Apply Fades button. Let's see that in action. I've loaded a number of events onto the timeline. For convenience, these events are solid-colored media events, but the tool works on all events, including audio events. I want some of them to have a 12-frame fade at either end, so I'll first select those events. I can then enter 12 in both the frame input fields. You can enter it directly or use the arrows at the side of the field. I can now click the Apply Fades button. If I zoom into one of the selected events, you can see the 12-frame fades. I'll now select some different events. Using the radio buttons, I can quickly select from a small range of fade lengths. Selecting from these buttons loads the frame input fields with the selected frame lengths. If only one end requires a fade, select the 0 radio button for the opposite end. The second option simply creates a 1 second fade at both ends of selected events. You may ask, why have this option when the first option can achieve the same result? The answer is that sometimes you may need a 1 second fade at either end of an isolated event. You can use this option for that purpose without disturbing any frame length settings you've established in the first option. The thing to note with both options, applying fades to selected events will overwrite any fades already on those events, so be careful when selecting your events. If no events are selected, a message will appear informing you of that fact. There's an option in Vegas Pro's preferences that, when enabled, will automatically apply crossfades of a pre-configured length to all events that are loaded onto the timeline. Now this is OK, providing you remember to enable that option. If you haven't and have already loaded all your events onto the timeline, you have two options. Either apply the crossfades manually, which can be a daunting task if there are a lot of events, or remove the events, enable the option, then load the events again. There's also the issue that the pre-configured crossfade length is fixed until you change it. This tool eliminates all those problems. The tool's interface is very simple, comprising a frame input field and a green Apply Crossfades button. How you use it is simple also. With the number of events on the timeline, select the track header, enter the amount of crossfade required, then press the green button. If you need to crossfade events on more than one track, select the tracks using Control-click. There's another function the tool performs. If there are any gaps between events, they will be closed when the crossfades are applied. Let's see it in action. I've loaded a project containing a number of video events, and there are no crossfades. I need to crossfade the audio events as well as the video events, so I'll select both tracks. Now, I normally like a one-frame crossfade between events. This makes the cut between events less harsh. Fortunately, the default value is 1. To apply the fades, I click the green button. Because the tool closes any gaps between events, it's best to apply crossfades before you start editing. Note that if there's a gap between the start of the timeline and the start of the first event, this gap will remain. The batch stabilization tool is a massive time saver. Over the years of shooting video, my hands have become less steady. My trusty Sony camcorder has an optical stabilizer, which does a very good job of stabilizing shaky footage. It does, however, leave my static shots with what I call frame drift. Vegas Pro's stabilizer plugin, in freeze motion mode, locks the frame and automatically crops it. The result is a rock-steady static shot. Most of the shots in my videos are static, so applying the stabilizer to each static shot was a long, tedious job. The batch stabilization tool automates this job. The tool operates in basic mode only. If either the professional or expert mode is your requirement, stabilization will have to be carried out manually. Again, the tool is simple to use. You select all the events that need stabilizing, select one of the two presets, then click the green Apply Stabilization button. As stabilizing progresses, the event currently being processed will have a loop region assigned to it. This shows the tool's progress. I use the Smooth Motion preset to smooth out any severe variations in my pan shots. Note that there are some caveats with this tool. I've tested it on VP20, VP19, VP17 and VP16. It works as I've described with VPs 20 and 19. When used with VP17, stabilization is carried out, but there is no loop region indication showing the tool's progress. If you're using it with VP17, there will be a delay until the complete stabilization sequence is finished. You won't see any action during this delay. The tool won't work with VP16 and earlier versions. It relies on the stabilizer plugin being applied as a video event effect. VP16 and earlier require the plugin to be applied as a media event effect. I haven't been able to test it with VP18, but it should work. Another two things to note about the tool. If you try to stabilize an event that's already been stabilized, an error message will appear, and the loop region will indicate that event. If you edit an event that's already been stabilized, such as trimming, the event will revert to being unstabilized. Under these conditions, the tool will be unable to restabilize that event. It must be carried out manually. This tool is for the scripters out there. Its purpose is to display the unique ID string for the effects entered into the plugin name field. This saves having to search documentation for this ID when it's required for a script. Okay, so it's not much use when editing, but if you're writing a script that involves plugins, it's invaluable. Here's how it works. Say I'm writing a script and I want the unique ID of the bump map effect. I first make sure that the video effects radio button is selected, then enter bump map into the plugin name field and click the green Find Effects Unique ID button. The plugin name isn't case sensitive, but an error message will be displayed if the plugin doesn't exist or if the name entered isn't spelt correctly. The unique ID for the plugin will be displayed in a message box. The tool works for audio effects also. Just make sure that the audio effects radio button is selected. If the plugin type doesn't match the FX radio button type, or the entry is misspelt, or it doesn't exist, an error message will be displayed. There are times during editing when you need to locate events that have a specific FX applied. This tool does just that. You enter the name of the effect into the search field, click the relevant radio button depending on whether it's a video or audio effect, then click the green Find Event Effects button. The tool will place regions on the events that have that effect applied, and the effect name will appear on the region's label. I know that in the current project there are a number of events that have been stabilized. To quickly locate these events, I first select the effect type. In this case, it's a video effect, so I make sure that the video effect option is selected. I can then enter the effect name into the search field and click the Find Event Effects button. Again, the input field isn't case sensitive, but the effect must exist and the name must be spelt correctly. Note the US spelling of Stabiisation. The tool also works for events that have a chain of effects applied. For repeated searches that find the same event, the region number for that event will increment. This is normal. When you've located the events with that effect applied, you can delete the regions with the Delete All Regions button. Note that this will do just that. All regions in your project will be deleted. The Pandora toolbox has improved my editing efficiency greatly. I hope that it does so for you too. I found the Apply Fades tool especially useful. The Batch Stabilization tool is a real time saver. I can set it going and leave it to complete while I do something else. Don't forget you can download Pandora using the link provided in the details. and it's free to use.